Purchases are the first item that we need to vote on.
Good. Good afternoon, Dr. Baker, Ms. Schottky, and Dr. Flores. Purchasing agenda is the first couple of pages of your packet. Nothing out of the ordinary, other than I just want to point out, as we had indicated at a prior meeting, second page under Building and Site, item C, bond projects, you'll see the recommendation to engage design services for the 6 elementary school buildings that we hope to install air conditioning in. So there's a memo, I think, also included from Ken. Any questions on that, Ken can certainly answer. Any other questions, I can certainly answer too.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't.
Motion to move the purchases to the full board. Will we be voting on that tonight?
Yeah, we will, yeah.
All right, so moved.
Support.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, November financial statements.
Yep, the financial dashboard, again, we continued through November, so 5 months of the new fiscal year, continue to track pretty much as expected, as I put it out before, because of the compensation increases that we gave to employees. Effective July 1st, our salaries are running above a year ago. Again, on the revenue side, on the the dashboard report, I'm looking at payment from governmental services at almost $13 million, compared to 6.7 a year ago. Again, a chunk of that increase is the enhancement millage, which at this point, we've probably got about 90% of that, of the approximately $3.4 million, $3.5 million we had anticipated. Everything else is tracking according to schedule. As I mentioned last, I guess we just met two weeks ago, didn't we? Or 3 weeks ago. The projected fund balance is still based on the budget that was approved back in June. And as I said, we are working right now on looking at the first 6 months of operations and intend to bring first amendment the first of the year. And upon that amendment and approval by the board, we'll update the projected fund balance as part of that whole process come January, early February. So any questions on the financials? Again, all the information supporting that is behind it for those of you that like to get into the details.
I know you just said this, but when are we expecting the budget amendment?
Our plans would be to bring it to this finance committee in January, and then to the board, the first board meeting in February at this point.
So with that said, because we could theoretically change at our
You're right.
restructuring meeting in January,
Right.
I think that what we have tried to do is, regardless of any changes we would go with, we would still plan on the January finance committee being at the same time as it's
Correct.
currently scheduled for, and any changes could occur.
Correct.
February. So,
Yep.
so that would be the fourth Monday
Monday.
of January is
Yes.
when we do expect the.
Yes.
Any other comments, questions about the November financials?
Nope.
Warm, safe, and dry update.
Nothing new to report on warm, safe, and dry. This summer's projects are winding down. We're completing the financial auditing internally on those, along with we received the last funding for warm, safe, and dry. When we get all our financial work done, we'll then sit down with the superintendent, make a recommendation how to finish out whatever money is left. Right now, we know pretty close, but we want to make sure we're exact what's left.
So with that, and this goes with, and may go back into the bond update too. So I sent you guys an email about the parents at the GR Montessori wondering about some repairs that they wanted to do. So a couple of questions. One is, I let them know that according to our schedule, that no renovations would take place until, with the bond money until, what, summer of 19? So their concern was, you know, either some cosmetic stuff like paint and carpeting, which are evidently pretty bad. I know the painting was done by me when my children were like 5 or 6, so, and Wendy and a couple other friends that were there. So could we use warm, safe, dry money and/or change that? And so I have two questions. One is, first of all, I haven't looked at the space, so I don't know how, if it's just a cosmetic issue or whether or not there's some concern, these parents' concerns are more worthy. But secondly, would there be other buildings that are kind of in a state of disrepair and are just waiting for us, but might have to wait a couple years?
Well, to answer your question, it is scheduled for in 2019. That is pending when we sell the second group of bonds. That will start that timetable. And that's dependent on a number of things, including the bond market, interest rates, when we're ready. There is once you sell bonds, there is a time limit of when you have to spend the money. So it starts a clock ticking. Central and Fountain will be handled together, and they were put in phase 2. There were a number of schools put in phase 2, and they were one of them. That they need to be handled together. We did have a master plan done for the site that recommended that we tie the buildings together and connect them. There are some factors that complicate work on those buildings, being that they're deemed historic buildings. It's in a historic neighborhood, makes it a little more complex. So anything we do there is going to take some time to work through the process. Warm, safe, and dry does not allow for paint. It's got to be some type of capital improvement. The painting that was shown, some of it is, at least in Central, is slated to be done over the breaks. And the one is in a stairwell where we have to put up scaffolding. We need to do it when no students are around. I can tell you, we've been anticipating certain things. We have spent money at both Central and Fountain with warm, safe, and dry, trying to work on the envelope and things that would not be wasted. So at Central, we've spent almost $2 million. About half of it was on masonry repairs. Some other half was inside. At Fountain, we spent about $500,000. Most of that went to restroom improvements, which most likely will be retained even through a bond program.
Well, that's good, because I know the restrooms were needed.
And so we've been trying to pick and choose things that we wouldn't be throwaway when we did something bigger, and it's not always been easy. But the one thing I can tell you is we can't do paint, but we will look at it, and I'll take those back to our maintenance department to see what we can work into our schedule.
Okay, so you would basically, you're saying that we can look at Fountain and see what can be done in the interim, if anything. So, but are there other buildings that might be in similar situations that are just, they're a couple years out before they get their improvements, but they still might be in some disrepair now that we should consider? I mean, part of it is, I think part of it is driven by the fact that there's media coverage of buildings that are being renovated. But part of it is a recognition that it might be something that people have to live with for another couple of years if there's problems.
Well,
And then the final question is, how should the board respond to these questions?
let me just say, when we divided the buildings into phase 1 and phase 2, you can make a case for every building in our district.
That's right.
So there's a lot of factors that go into it, not only condition, but we looked at certain ones, how quickly can we get something going. Buchanan was one that we felt we not only had the need, but we could get moving really quick. Ottawa was one, and that's proven to be slower than we expected. it's more complex, figuring out what to do with Ottawa. To me, two of them that have needs that maybe people don't see are Riverside and Westwood. They weren't touched with the first bond and really have had very little done to them. They're not 100-year-old buildings, they're 50-year-old buildings, but they still, it's really hard to sit here and say, yeah, now I can go back and say this need supersedes another need.
So, and actually Westwood was closed today for some reason?
Power was
Power
out
outage,
this
yeah.
morning.
Was that the community or just that building?
Just Westwood.
Okay, so, well, I guess that's what I'm trying, I mean, I recognize, I mean, when, you know, we don't want to spend money and then a year later, you know, erase the benefit from that money, so, with the bond, and I recognize, for instance, Central and Fountain, probably Ottawa, there's lots of things that need to be considered, so I understand why it's taking so long. I guess that, are there solutions that can allow us to, you know, do temporary repairs that make people feel good? Or is it just, if it's just cosmetic, we just say we're just going to have to wait? It's really having to know how to respond to people in fair ways.
I will have our maintenance staff look at what was sent and review not only Fountain, but other buildings on the list. If it's cosmetic and we can get to it within our schedule and within the maintenance staff that we have, even if it's paint and that type of cosmetic, we can do to get by. We'll have to look at each one.
Okay.
I know in Central, there's a couple of stairwells that the plaster is spalling, and we're going to repair that and repaint over the break.
Okay, well, that's helpful, I think, just to know how to help with people, so. Do you want to add to the bond update?
Well, and I will just say, with the superintendent and keeping her informed, I've been pretty deliberate on how we planned and spent the bond dollars. Part of me is I want to make sure we're getting most value out of them. Could we have gone faster? Probably, but I wouldn't feel near as comfortable. I know we spent a lot of time on city, but we got to a point we really got a lot into that project.
We did.
And I'd rather be a little slow and know we're getting more value for my own comfort.
Yeah, and I don't want you in any way to see my questions as being a criticism of or an accusation of going slow. So, I mean, I know there's lots of things that are happening in construction world in this community right now. So there's a whole bunch of things that be considered. So that's why I was wanting to be able to say, you know, could I say to people, hey, we'll see what we can do to fix some of these things, or just wait.
And it's okay. I had that same question from a city parent.
Okay.
That we were a year behind, and I went through why, and I said I'd rather be at this point than at another point not comfortable with what we're getting for our dollars. So, it's a legitimate question.
I would say, too, from the construction industry, just like you said, Dr. Baker, there's benefit to spreading our projects out because of the limited availability of trade contractors right now. If we went out to bid with, 10, 15 schools at the same time, we're going to deplete our own resources of trade contractors and really spread them too thin at a time that they are already spread thin. So that would be another thing I would say to the community from a trade contractor standpoint. This is a wise decision for the district.
Right. No, I respect that too. So.
I'll morph into a bond update. Buchanan is moving along, so far on schedule. We intend to move students into 13 classrooms at spring break while we finish the rest of it. Museum High School is moving along, again on schedule for a summer completion. University, the abatement is complete and we started construction. And City, they're doing some temporary work at night right now over the holiday break. We have a mover coming to move all the north side classrooms to their temporary quarters. We will be building temporary walls in the hallways, doing abatement over the holidays, so that's completed before the students come back. Tomorrow morning, the students are doing a walkthrough simulation of their new locations, so we'll be up there to see how that goes and make sure we can adapt We're meeting weekly with Principal Huppert, trying to just go through stuff. We know there's things that we're going to miss, and we're just going to have to adapt and correct them on the fly when we start school on the 8th. But we're moving forward. That's kind of an exciting job to get when that size started, and really those are more fun because the challenges of doing them with an active building.
Comments on it? So I've spent a lot of time in Central the last couple of weeks, and trying to imagine, I'm learning that 20 million doesn't go as far as it used to. So should we be thinking about, are we gonna have what we need? Are there gonna be buildings that we need to try to find other community support for?
When we went out with the bond, I believe we had originally said we needed 375 million, but we were only asking for 175. And we listed project examples, and we're clear that we knew we couldn't do everything. But as we got into the designs with the advisory committees, with what was needed, there'll be some things that we just had to do. And then there were some things that we would, with advice, choose what were priorities. So that's what we do when we get into the building. We'll identify everything. As far as we're concerned, a couple of the priorities, classrooms come first. That's the first thing we're going to renovate, that the students have an adequate learning space. And part of that is making sure the heat and air conditioning are in shape for that. For most places, that's adding air and renovating the heating system. But as far as we look at it, just going in, classroom space is the top priority.
Okay.
But yes, there will be things that we won't be able to do at Central. And just like there are at City, we had to back off some things.
Okay, be nice. So,
Dr. Baker, I have more of a process question, and it's really not for the finance staff, but for you. You said you spent a lot of time at Central, and then you brought up the issues that you have at Fountain. How are you over at the building visiting on a tour, or are you just because you have kids there? Or?
my son goes to Fountain, so I'm there.
So you're there?
Yeah, but I've also been working with people at Fountain to create partnerships with Ferris.
Okay.
So the teacher.
So that puts you in the Central environment more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
All right, moving on. Banking resolution.
Yeah, annually, we need the board to approve our depository institutions and the institutions where we have some investment dollars, and that takes place generally the first of the year, but we decided to bring it to the board tonight. So that resolution, as you can see on the first page, those three banks are unchanged from last year. You may recall last year we did add PNC, which is our major operating account now, but we still do business with Fifth Third, and Huntington has some of our trustee for some of our bond funds. And then on the second page under item 4, you'll see the entities where we have Board of Education investments, and those are unchanged from the prior year. So would recommend that the board would approve this resolution for calendar year 2018.
And we will be approving it tonight.
Tonight, correct. It'll go to the board tonight.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
Nope.
Can I get a motion to send this on to the full board?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then the Consumers Energy Easement Resolution.
This easement is to bring power into the new location at Buchanan from the power pole and the right-of-way into our new transformer location. It's on a new part of the building.
I support power there, for sure. All right, motion to move.
They're alternatives. It's like,
Right.
you know,
Not many.
we can't put in windmills or anything. so,
Right.
Okay, well, I support our motion to,
So moved.
Support.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anything else? All right, we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.